do think most people would agree with the idea that Kaepernick will be a starter in this league before he'll be a backup.
Dan, from the fans side of this, do you think it's all being overblown? I was reading about Michael Vick. When Michael Vick got out of prison and went to Philadelphia, the first day he went to work, there were 30 protesters. The second day there were like 15 or 20, and the third day there were 5, and then that was it, and it was over. If Kaepernick gets a job, would you expect that type of situation as well for it to be over pretty quickly as far as protesters?
Man, that's hard to say. I don't know what it is that everybody is exactly fearing here because, Mike, since the beginning on this, I've been a little bit confused as to why it is that this has been such a polarizing issue when if the starting point on kneeling is Colin Kaepernick's very reasonable request, hey, can we please stop killing black people unnecessarily and unjustly? Like, it's not that by itself isn't that controversial. Like, the controversial part is the killing of black people. Protesting the killing of black people is not that controversial. And so the fact that we've arrived here where Colin Kaepernick has jumped from the sports pages into one of these transcendent symbols where he's no longer a football player. He is this issue. His name is associated with this issue, not being, a few yards from winning the Super Bowl. The fact that we've arrived here at all is confounding to me. Like, I just didn't think that in 2017 we'd still be in this place, presidential election notwithstanding, that we'd still be in this place where we're doing this with the color of skin, where the color of skin in 2017 is still something that is divisive. Like, it's just crazy to me that we've arrived here.
Well, I think we've all learned a lot about that through this process. But I just want one more quickly on the Castro element of this, because that part of it I found really interesting. In Miami, that is a unique circumstance, and Bomani brought up what happened with Ozzie Guillen, and I remember, Dan, you being on our show multiple times after the Ozzie Guillen controversy along those lines. So if Cutler were to get hurt, could the Dolphins bring him in that city, in a place where that part of it, forgetting about the kneeling during the anthem, but that particular part of it would be so controversial?
I think so, Mike. I think, first of all, I wanted Colin Kaepernick as the quarterback here. My parents did not want Colin Kaepernick as the quarterback here. And there is some generational differences but the dying generation is the one that has the most reason and the most pain inflicted by Castro. And so you have a lot of Cuban Americans like me who have grown up in this country, who've become Americanized, who've learned to think for ourselves because of the freedom that these exiles brought us. And so I don't agree with my parents on this. But what you're alienating would be an older Cuban and the younger Cubans who defend the passions of the older Cubans emotionally instead of rationally, because I will side with my parents on their pain over all else, no matter what it is that I believe. But in this particular case, I like Colin Kaepernick's skill set for the Miami Dolphins. So I would have taken him ahead of Cutler personally, but there's a lot of arguing back and forth about who's better, Jay Cutler or Colin Kaepernick. But the Cuba issue is an interesting one, because I do think that the Miami sports fan would be myopic enough that if Jay Cutler goes down and they're looking at a season of Matt Moore, they might put their ethnicities and their politics aside to cheer for Colin Kaepernick.
All right, Mike and Dan Le Batard, who's with us. The other thing we've been talking about this morning, and now we're getting into a really complicated area as far as what is the obligation of a hugely successful public figure when he can, without wanting to become a difference maker on a significant topic. So you have Tom Brady last week saying, my personal health history is nobody's business. And you have Bob Lee saying, and I quote, "The hell it isn't." And we've talked a lot about it here this morning. What obligation? Yes, I was taken aback by Bob saying it that strongly as well. Where, Dan, do you see, if anywhere, Brady having an obligation to be transparent and open on the issue of head injuries in a sport that has made him an iconic figure and all of that, knowing how important his words on the subject might be for young players?
Yeah, it's not in him, though. He's shown nowhere in his past, in that bejeweled resume, he has shown nowhere that he's willing to take a stand on anything. The Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter model it's a very lucrative model. The idea of I'm just going to give you my excellence and nothing else. And that's all you're going to get. And it's going to have to speak for itself because you're not going to get anything else out of me on any subject that's interesting. And so what's happened in those circumstances, you win that much, and we'll fill in the mythology around you, whether you're giving us the words to do it or not. So I understand what you're saying. Like, yes, John Amici's theory is that LeBron James, if he wished to, LeBron James could help with the world's education problem and could help with the world's famine problem if he dedicated himself and all his resources and all his power to actually attacking that cause. Of course, Tom Brady's wife said last year that he got a concussion, and that became a story for days. If Tom Brady were to give a voice and a name and a face to this that's still living, that of course he can move the mountain on this, but he's not a mountain mover socially. He's a mountain mover on the field, nowhere else.
Do you feel players, there should be an obligation on their part?
Well, I don't want to push my sensibilities on these people. You are who you are. Like, I would like that, of course, but I'm in the content business. Like, I've got a bias, too. I want them to do that because I believe that all of us are sitting here playing games and that the real work is when, sports is the funhouse mirror where society goes to check its reflection. Like, that's what I want sports to be, but I can't expect Tom Brady to be that for me just because I want it. That would make me awfully selfish. Like, I want it. I want Tom Brady to be out there and be comfortable, be polarizing. Hell, I'd be fine if Tom Brady went out there and decided to be like a professional wrestler and just woof and be like Ric Flair. I'd enjoy all of that. But I can't force that on him when that's not how he wants to be.
He can't do that. Rob Gronkowski is too busy doing that for him. He's Dan Le Batard every day following us here coast to coast with Stugatz and Company. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
That's Dan Le Batard with us. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. He and all our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. That's an interesting part of the Kaepernick story. If you have followed, just to go back to that one quickly, the owner, Stephen Ross, whom I had the opportunity to hear speak a couple of weeks ago at the Humanitarian Awards, he's a guy who I think would have signed Kaepernick. I do. I believe he would have. The Castro issue that is so specifically important in Miami is one I really hadn't. I mean, maybe it's my own stupidity for having overlooked that side of it. But until Bomani brought it up as strongly as he did an hour ago, I really hadn't thought of that part of it. That might create more controversy in Miami than anything else.
But what's interesting is that Colin Kaepernick, what's being held against him is his views on things and things he said. But what did Dan just say? And that's why I went to Dan, because Dan's down in Miami. He said there would be people willing to put aside, if their team was in a position to need wins and they felt Colin Kaepernick could get them wins, people would put aside their views to then root for Colin Kaepernick to help them win their team. Yet that's exactly what's being held against him, is his views on things.
Well, so that brings up an interesting question because, look, I understand people who have a major issue with the manner in which Colin Kaepernick chose to make his protest. I understand it. I personally support his right to do it, but I understand that people do not. But I wonder if, and this would never happen, but I wonder if Aaron Rodgers did that. Would those same people say, I don't want him on my team? You know, if Colin Kaepernick, it's kind of hard to quantify how good he is right now.
Yeah.
You can make arguments that say, well, his numbers last year were pretty good, and then, well, it didn't really look that good all the time.
It gives you just enough of an out, where in Aaron Rodgers it wouldn't. Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, so you're going to put him on the team.
You've got plausible football deniability on Kaepernick, just to say he's not
which still is kind of a chuckle at this point.
There's no question in my mind that he is being blackballed by the majority of teams in the NFL. I don't even think that's a discussion point. It's an obvious fact. I also do think there are teams in the league that would sign him, and maybe none of them need a quarterback right now. But putting all that aside, I'm now talking about the people. I'm talking about the fans. Be as open and honest as this as you can. We're just having a conversation here. If that player, if the person that you are so offended by and upset with were 100 times better. You know, I mean, I don't even know who you would put in this category right now. Was Cam Newton or was Aaron Rodgers or was someone who's just obviously a great player? Would your perspective change? Would you now want him on your team? I don't know the answer. I can't tell anyone.
Everybody's got to answer that themselves. But as I said, the better you are, the more leash you get. And I think that would be true in this case as well.
Haven't seen Herman Edwards in far too long. He's coming by our studio. We'll chat with him as we continue. Busy day with Mike and Mike after this word from Uber. Golick, you can't believe how fast the year is going. Training camps are open. Baseball season's getting close to the end. Reminds us all that summer job you took at the movie theater just to get some extra bucks to go out to a ball game. But if that were us today, we'd be driving with Uber.
Yep, totally flexible way to earn right now. Earn that extra money for all the things that matter to you. Work when you want. Take time off when you want. That's why driving with Uber is the ultimate side hustle. You can make money make every day payday thanks to Uber's Instant Pay. Make the most of your summer. Earn the extra cash when you want. Get that side hustle on. Sign up to drive with Uber today. Go to uber.com/drive now. That's uber.com/drive now. And Uber is uber.com/drive now. Certain restrictions do apply. Check out the website for all the details. We're back after this, Mike and Mike.